Welcome to the I Hate Critics Movie Review Podcast. I'm professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff.
Hello.
Jeff, where's your art?
JeffLassiter.com is where everything lives. In the link section, there's Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. All the places that Meta owns, I guess.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
We shared
a couple days ago.
We shared your art on the Facebook page for people who want to check that out there. And you can get some prints for Jeff's birthday.
Yeah, you should. I mean, help me buy new glasses so I can see.
Hey, that's a great thing.
More art.
It's hard to paint when you're like 2 inches away from the canvas. And
what's funny is like I mostly have trouble with far away, but I've noticed when I'm in a big store and the lights are blazing and whatever, I need them just to kind of even stuff out. Everything's so bright and shimmery there.
Yeah, I can't stand stuff like that for too long. That really gives me a headache.
You know, I work in a big box store, and when I'm in the back room and the lights are, it's not quite as bright.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. I still can't see somebody halfway across the storeroom, but but it's not, my eyes don't hurt. So I did have to, however, start wearing my glasses at the movies.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
a milestone moment.
I got about 10 minutes in a few weeks ago, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see if it's better with my glasses. And I turned my glasses on, and I was like, oh, what do you know?
Here, I thought it was bad cinematography, and
oh, it was that too. It was just,
So, what are you working on? You got any pieces? Any new pieces?
I am working on right now. I just finished up a couple commissions. Working on a wedding gift. I'm working on a possible sticker design for somebody, and I'm also doing a new poster of the movie Creepshow.
Cool.
Now, I don't know if before I joined, if you guys ever talked about that movie, but I adore it. It's so dumb and funny, and somebody mentioned it. I put it on my my Facebook page. What should I work on? And somebody said that, and a couple weeks in, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I've never have. So I'm working on one right now. I'm drawing Adrienne Barbeau. When I met her last fall at a convention that I just attended, I was like, I really like to get my own artwork signed, but I don't have anything with you on it. And she laughed, and she signed my Fog print.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, she's pretty awesome. So I'm working on her right now. Once it's done, which hopefully this week, if I think I have the time actually this week to actually do it, I'll share it. And I might actually make some stickers to go with the prints from the individual panels. So we'll see.
All right. And hopefully we can get you doing some Baby Jane art for when that's relevant.
I did
after this show comes out and makes it a huge thing.
I did a Baby Jane poster about 6 or 7 years ago that I just found tonight when I was watching it. And I was like, you know what? Let's see if I can still find that. And it was behind another piece. And I think I'm going to try to scan it again and make some prints of it. Lost the file in 2021 when my hard drive went to shit. But I did it. I was thinking about it. My first trip to LA, one of the film locations I stopped at was the house from Baby Jane, and I used that in my drawing. So I'll post that a little later. I took a not great photo of it, but you'll get the picture. So
I find it amazing that I'm in awe of people who can take pictures like that, because even if they're not good, because I can't imagine being in a residential neighborhood and taking a picture of even a famous house. It just makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like, why is this person here who is this creep taking pictures?
Well, on Halloween 2020, I took my best friend to South Pasadena, California, where most of Halloween was filmed, and there was a line to take pictures at the Myers house and at the hedge that Michael ducks behind, which incidentally,
he just
the
goes
house
jogging
Linda,
away from with his little suit, just running away from when the girls come up there. Always makes me laugh.
Hey, creep. Lori, he wants to talk to you. I just love those lines. Incidentally, that hedge, the house that Linda lives in next to the hedge in Halloween, is the house from Mama's Family. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. But... So
adds to
Linda
the comedy.
Yes, somehow Linda Vanderclock Halloween is related to Thelma Harper from Mama's Family.
Just imagining Vicki Lawrence watching Michael Myers run through her backyard.
What, Vanton? What the hell? He is. And then Eunice, Carol Burnett's character, Mama, there's a man running through our backyard.
Comedy.
Well, Lord.
I guess we're talking about movies, though. I do want to mention, as just a brief kind of TV. It's movie related because there's a movie coming out, so I guess it works. But I just want to make fun of Jerry Seinfeld a little bit.
Oh God.
Jerry Seinfeld's got a movie coming out on Netflix soon. He's been out doing interviews, and he says that there are no sitcoms left. So the entire world has been pointing out to him that sitcoms still exist, which is very funny. I literally
just watched The Connors.
Jeff, the woke left PC mob won't let you make sitcoms anymore.
Oh, okay. These must be reruns from 30 years ago when he was... quote unquote.
He literally just appeared on a fucking sitcom like a month ago. He was on Curb. It's a sitcom.
I am convinced. I am 110% convinced that anything he has ever said that was actually funny on Seinfeld was written by Larry David, because he has no sense of humor. He's just, everything is, oh, well, I can't do comedy anymore because the woke left mob. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. It's just, you just don't have to be a misogynist. You don't have to be rapey, and you don't have to punch down. That's all people are like talking about when it comes to comedy. And here you are.
But when has Jerry Seinfeld said anything remotely controversial other than dating marrying a teenager, which he did? Look it up. His wife was 17. Just saying.
Picked her up in a park.
Just saying. Other than that, what has this guy ever said that's been controversial?
He was 38 when
airline food. Oh, can you believe it? Oh, the guy's going to be my butler because he hit my car. What the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, Jerry Seinfeld is...
I just don't think he's very funny.
He's always been a style comedian. He's always been a guy who has the rhythm of a joke that, like, it's a setup and a payoff, and everybody knows when to laugh. That's Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. That's what he does in stand-up. He has never done a truly great hour of stand-up in his entire life, but he's venerated because he made money on TV. He did what those guys in the 70s wanted to do. He went on Carson, he got a TV show, he became a millionaire. That's all that his generation ever wanted. You know, it's just such a boomer. It's just, we shouldn't be surprised that Seinfeld is so shitty, but it's disappointing because he was so quiet for so long and didn't say anything dumb for so long that it's just kind of, oh man.
Well, I mean, he's come up with that shtick a few years ago about, you know, how you can't play college campuses because, you know, people hold you to account for the things that you say. And he also fails to realize, I think, that when he got his sitcom, they were handing out sitcoms like they were aspirin. You know, Tim Allen had a sitcom, Roseanne had a sitcom, he had a sitcom. Everybody, Drew Carey, every comedian got a sitcom in the 80s and 90s. It's just, you know, that's just the way it worked because everybody they were chasing that elusive Cosby Show thing. Mm-hmm. And so they were giving him out like crazy. And seriously, when he said, I couldn't make my show today. Yeah, you couldn't. A, I didn't think it was funny. It was dumb. B, you're in New York and you have no characters of color. The primary, secondary, and tertiary characters were all white in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why do you think you should make that show today? What about Seinfeld do you think is so sacrosanct that you would have to make that same show? Even Friends had a recurring black character after a while because they listened to the criticism about it. But he's one of those guys who can never see that he may have done something that could be considered wrong by people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think that's the right terminology, but I think he's so convinced, he's so high on his own supply. Let's just put it that way. He could never admit that he might have to change. And that's where a lot of these comics from the 80s and 90s are really starting to piss me off, because it's just like, oh, I can't do anything because of woke. No, it's not because of woke. It's because times have changed.
Yeah, it's funny.
People,
it's funny because Bill Maher complains that he can't tell jokes on HBO every week while he tells jokes. On the TV show they pay him millions of dollars to tell jokes on, he can't tell jokes anymore.
Yeah.
What on the podcast that he hosts? He can't tell jokes anymore on the podcast that he hosts every week on top of his TV show. I mean, go fuck yourself. What are you talking about, you fucking idiot? In Seinfeld, the college campus thing, Jerry, you're in your 70s. You're not relevant. I'm sorry. You're just
exactly.
You're just not relevant to that crowd anymore. That's why you can't play colleges. That's why. It's nothing. It's not that you're saying anything that's going to offend them. They're not interested in you. You're 70 years old. You don't relate to them anymore.
It would be like Shecky Green showing up to Harvard in 1987.
Exactly.
It
would be like us complaining that, junior high kids don't listen to our podcast. Well, why aren't the junior high kids listening to our podcast? I don't understand it. It's because they're too woke.
Yeah.
We're offending them with our opinions of movies.
We are anti-woke.
So stupid. Find your own audience, Jerry. Go talk to... You're a billionaire, asshole. Who's ever stopped you from saying anything? Ever. For fuck's sake. God, these fucking assholes. Why is it rich guys are the ones constantly complaining about being silenced while they're doing so talking to the fucking New Yorker?
Yeah. I can tell you why. Because they are so famous and so rich that they cannot interact with regular human beings. Mm-hmm. So they hear, the only people that are surrounding these people are yes men. It's kind of the same with Madonna. I don't, she's not saying, oh, I can't do this because of woke. She's not able to have that interaction with regular people. Mm-hmm. So she does weird shit on the internet that nobody tells her, makes her look dumb, because she has so much money. They don't want to, get kicked off the gravy train. The same with Seinfeld. I'm sure that his wife, who's now 52 when he's 70, do the math. I'm sure that she's probably like, oh God, I'm so tired of this, and can never say anything because he'd kick her out, and I'm sure there's a prenup, Elon Musk, Elon, he's the same way. If any criticism whatsoever cannot be handled because he's got all these people around him telling that he's doing a great job, and oh my God, you're the smartest guy in the room and all that. And it's so embarrassing. Like I can't stand most of these guys, but I'm embarrassed for them at this point.
It's interesting you mentioned that about being out of touch. There is this anecdote that is in Chuck Klosterman's book about the 90s about George Bush in 92 or 91 had the highest presidential approval rating in history. It was like 82%, like unheard of approval rating, and went on to lose. And nobody seems to know exactly how it happened, But what happened was, while on the
grocery
campaign
store?
trail, he went to a grocery store and was confused by the price of milk and how a sensor worked when you're doing your own grocery shopping.
Yep.
He was amazed by it. He'd never seen it before his entire life. And it became that thing that somehow his son won on about the guy you can relate to and have a beer with. Bill Clinton
Yeah.
was the guy you could relate to and have a beer with.
Yeah, I when they talk about the elites, I'm just like, you you just you just elected a guy who sits on a gold toilet and was a television star.
Mm.
How much more elite do you get? You know, it's George H.W. Bush. I remember that. I remember the controversy about that. I was in college and I was like, this guy's an asshole. And we actually talked about that.
Yeah.
In my dorm. We were like, oh my God, can you imagine this guy? And I were all idealists in college. So we were, this elite guy who doesn't know how a grocery scanner works. Fuck that guy. You know, I don't get the, they go after education, but not people who grew up privileged. And I think that's because a lot of people are temporarily embarrassed millionaires. You know what I mean?
Mm.
They're like, oh, when I'm a millionaire next week, when I win the lottery, or, my 401k goes through the roof or something, when I'm a millionaire, I'm going to be able to buy and sell all these stupid idiots. And well, I got news for you. Nothing's trickling down, Cletus.
It reminds me of music too, where it's like when you get to a certain point in your career of being so successful in music, you have to just become a greatest hits band. Not because it's what people demand of you, but because you can't write a song anymore. You don't relate to normal people anymore. At a certain point, Taylor Swift is not going to be able to relate to a person anymore. She's going to be so cloistered and so cut off from the rest of the world from being a billionaire. She's not going to be the same Taylor Swift in 5 years. That's not a knock on Taylor Swift. It's just reality for Taylor Swift because she gets to do things that you and I can't do. And she's not going to interact with people on a normal level ever again. That's just the way it is. She's not going to be able to write breakup songs once she's happily married. If that's what she wants to do.
Famous. Yeah, when you're that famous, there's just no way there's just no way that you can be just a person.
Yeah.
Except in your, within your own family. And even that, look at what happened to Britney Spears, her dad ran her crazy. And
yet we sit as an audience and demand their authenticity. This is their authenticity because they don't have a normal life.
Yeah. Look at Michael Jackson is a perfect example of this. Michael Jackson grew up in the spotlight. He never had a normal life. I think one of the reasons that he probably molested kids is because he didn't know what he was doing. And I'm not apologizing for it. I just think that he was stuck at that like pubescent age where he became famous and could not relate to anybody anymore. And didn't know how to interact with normal people, or he was probably never taught right from wrong by his parents because he was, again, the gravy train. Once he went out on his own and became the most famous person in music, of course, none of his family's going to tell him, no, you shouldn't do this. They're going to, oh, Michael, that's great. You should, buy this ranch. Yeah. Hang out with kids, have sleepovers, and keep the money coming, and we don't care.
Yeah.
So
I think Seinfeld has been, I think he's old, and I think he's just too far removed from reality to really get what he's saying, to really understand what he's saying. It's because what he's saying is incredibly foolish and misguided and just ignorant of reality.
I think this movie is going to flop. I don't think it's going to be what they want it to be, and most of that is due to him.
Yeah. It's a Netflix film, so we'll never know if it doesn't do well, really.
Yeah.
It'll just come and go. We're not going to watch it. We're not going to review it because
No,
it's not
no, I'm not.
it's not a theatrical feature, so we don't give a fuck. Uh, I wasn't excited for it based off of that bizarre trailer, and I'm certainly thankful that it's a Netflix movie that I don't have to watch in a movie theater. So
Yeah.
thank you, Netflix. Keep him away from actual movies. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly.
The creator of B Movie is upset about people being canceled.
Oh,
Yeah, sure, dude.
A Bug's Life is superior anyway.
Oh, that's just your woke PC leftist point of view.
Yep, exactly.
Well, that film is communist, whereas B Movie is capitalist. So I mean, you're onto something. Jerry's onto something. He's going to cancel you. All right.
Hey, before I forget, and before we get into the movies,
Yeah.
I got to let you know I am actually going to be at a show in the Quad Cities that you might be interested in attending. It's the Quad City Toy Show. It is at the Rock Island County Fairgrounds on May 18th, and they have a special guest. Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Shut up.
It's going to be there.
Brother Brutai. Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
So, I mean, we might have to get you and Bob out of the house.
That's incredible. That guy has had a fucking life. Oh my God. The man is just astonishing. Just anyway.
I really think you should reach out and see if you can interview him before the show.
I should. Ah, man. Wow. Brutus Beefcake. Wow. Amazing. Can you imagine going through life being called Brutus Beefcake?
I mean, all the time, but I actually went to a school from kindergarten through high school with somebody who was obsessed with him. And I don't know if we're Facebook friends or not or whatever, but she would draw him all the time. We had a costume party that she came dressed as him. So I hope she's able to see the ad for the toy show that he's coming to town. So.
Amazing. He's the source of one of the greatest anxieties of my youth, wherein he did this thing where he became Brutus the Barber Beefcake. His gimmick was being a barber, but his idea of being a barber was carrying giant shears that he would just clap together, walking to the ring while people are reaching their hands out to shake his hand. And I'm like, it looks so much like he's just going to cut somebody every time I see it. And it created this anxiety in me for life that I don't even want to look at gardening shears. Just say.
Can't watch Friday the 13th part 5 then.
Weird association. Anyway, let's talk about violent movies. We'll start with the one I saw called Boy Kills World, starring Bill Skarsgard, in the story of a kid who is rescued as a child by this insane forest-dwelling shaman who turns him into a living weapon, a warrior destined to kill the Vanderkoy family. The Vanderkoys are the ruling family in this fascist future where they have this thing called the culling, where they kill people on television to keep people in line and not trying to fight back against them. They have killed the boy's family, and they left him deaf and unable to speak by cutting out his tongue. And now he just is focused solely on killing the head of the Vanderkoy family, played by
Famke Janssen.
Famke Janssen, thank you. His biggest problem is that his sister was killed, and he still kind of has this. He's very hurt by that. He still has visions of his little sister that he interacts with during the movie. He doesn't have a voice, so they give him the voice of H. John Benjamin from Bob's Burgers, which creates this sort of dissonance between like the kind of serious violence that's going on, but also this comic voiceover that's happening, which is kind of funny at times. But there's an odd story about that, in that this movie actually played at the Toronto Film Festival last year. And this is just an anecdote I've heard secondhand. So if I'm wrong about this, I apologize. But apparently they played this movie at Toronto last year without the voiceover. and then they went back and added the voiceover after the reaction. Which makes it kind of strange, kind of stranger than it already is. How did this movie exist without this voiceover is kind of a weird question. This movie is basically, I mean, it is like Monkey Man or like
John Wick.
John Wick. It has that kind of constant ultra-violent thing, and the violence is, constant and overwhelming and bloody and gross. And I don't have a problem with that, but we've reached kind of a tipping point where now we're 4 John Wicks in, and we just had Monkey Man, and now here comes this movie. And this movie kind of doesn't know how to end. Like, it does that constant violence, and then like it just takes it too far to the point where like the final act of the movie basically turns all of the remaining characters into the Black Knight from Monty Python. Like they're suffering these injuries that they can't possibly like live through or get up from. And I know it's a movie and you can do anything you want. And I know John Wick kind of turned into that as well in the 4th film, where he's like, when he's especially like falling down the stairs all those times, like there's just no way any human being could possibly get up, no matter how well trained they are. There's some bro in the audience going, "No, dude, it's real. I could do that. I could do that. I'll go throw myself down the stairs right now, bro." Well, please do. It comes ridiculous and kind of dispiriting by the end. And in the end, I didn't like the movie. I appreciated aspects of it, but I don't think it certainly doesn't reach the heights of Monkey Man, which had the kind of, it had sort of an emotional underpinning with the relationship with his mother, that is, gives it kind of an extra kick. That movie doesn't have much of a sense of humor, but it does have Dev Patel just delivering moment after moment. And Bill Skarsgård is okay. He's not quite that good, and robbed of having a voice to actually relate to. It definitely limits his appeal as an actor, that he can't talk to us. So in the end, I just was kind of left cold by it, even as I love Jessica Rothe, and Jessica Rothe is in this movie, and you could probably guess who her character is just off of knowing she's in the movie. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I don't recommend it. It's not terrible, but I'm kind of worn out on this genre now. After Monkey Man was a nice little peak after the whole John Wick thing ended, and now I think I can do without one of these movies for a while. Go away and make us miss you, ultraviolence. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I had to make a choice whether it was this or Challengers this week, and I was always going to pick Challengers. And basically, I read your review, and I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I will see it streaming. Sometimes I know somebody who sometimes may or may not have a copy of it before it's officially released on streaming, but they did not, so I did not get to see it, even in a really poorly photographed Singaporean theater.
The elements of it, look good. I think it's shot well. I don't think this is a bad director by any stretch. I just don't think the story had enough to it to push it to the end. Especially the ending is just kind of dispiriting and dystopian, and it just becomes, like I said, just too much by the end, where the wounds that they're walking away with, they're just, even in a super magical universe that they're in, it only means that they're just walking 10 more feet before they die, basically. And that's like, whatever. Thanks for putting me through all this so I can just watch these characters die. Appreciate it.
I was kind of excited that, to see something with Jessica Rothe and Famke Janssen, because I like Famke Janssen. I always have. She was great in The Faculty. And those two were the reason I wanted to see it. I don't care about Bill Skarsgård all that much. That's why I'm not looking forward to The Crow. But yeah, I'm not, I will see it when it comes to streaming. I'll just tell you privately my thoughts.
This is just this might be a terrible thought. I don't know if this is good or not, but Do you think we would remember The Crow if Brandon Lee hadn't died during The Crow? Like,
Probably not.
was that movie good enough? I like that movie. I like The Crow. I'm a fan. But do we all even remember it if he doesn't die during it? And does it get remade
Um,
today if he's still alive?
yes, it would get remade today if he was still alive because they don't have any genuinely like good ideas left that aren't already IPs. Um, I don't think it would necessarily be considered a classic, you know? I mean, it's good. I liked it. I did see it because, he died while filming it. Um, but no, I don't think it would be considered a classic.
Mm. Yeah, just I have a feeling that if it weren't attached to that tragedy, I don't think that movie would mean as much to people as it does. Nothing against it. I do like The Crow. I'm just saying that it's not the most memorable cult film without tragedy attached to it. Let's talk about horny tennis, shall we?
The only kind of tennis I like.
Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino and starring Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor, in the story of champion tennis players who have a relationship among them that is deeply problematic at times for their entire lives. Zendaya is a superstar on the rise who then ends up with an injury and ends up having to not be able to play tennis because of that injury. Mike Faist ends up becoming her husband, who goes on to become a champion. Josh O'Connor is his former best friend who started off dating Zendaya. And then, of course, when he wouldn't focus on tennis and it's kind of an asshole, she dumped him. Because her entire life is tennis. Like when tennis isn't happening, she wants to talk about tennis. When she's about to have sex with Josh O'Connor, she's like, "We're going to talk about tennis while we're having sex." And he's like, "Well, hang on, no, I just want to have sex." And she's like, "No, I'm done. Then I'm going to go over here and think about tennis." Uh, which I find to be a fascinating character trait. But I find that this whole plot, which shifts back and forth in time, from when they were kids and when they first kind of met as teenagers, through college, through becoming professional players, and now they're at this tournament where Mike Faist is kind of at the end of his career, trying to wind down being a tennis champion. He's playing this tune-up tournament, and he happens to be playing Josh O'Connor's character, who they haven't spoken in a long time, and it's this very fraught back and forth matchup that takes up that we'll see throughout the film. It's very sweaty. It's very, kind of violent and exciting. The tennis is shot incredibly well with this like hardcore dance score that just is sort of assaulting you every time the tennis is being played, which I actually really liked. I know that sounds like a bad thing. I actually really appreciated the scoring of this film. I really liked everything about this movie. I loved the way that the game and the personal politics are revealing themselves throughout. I liked the little visual touches that Luca Guadagnino uses to sort of communicate the story between these characters. Just little touches like the way a guy holds a racket, or just something like that, the way he puts the ball somewhere, like it's telling you something. It's a really great piece of filmmaking, but also just this wonderful character dynamic between these three terrific actors who they create these very, very different characters who he seemed to have very different kinds of motivations. Like Mike Faist just seems to want to be kind of a normal guy. Zendaya is tennis all the time. And Josh O'Connor is just a fuck up who just kind of that's just kind of drifting and doing different things and only becomes focused when he thinks that somebody might have slighted him or if there's something that he wants. It's really just these three dynamic, unique, interesting characters set in this very unique, cloistered world of tennis. And I was just fascinated from beginning to end.
Yeah, it took me a few minutes to kind of get the gist of what was going on in the middle of the movie.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, she wants them together, basically. And Zendaya in this movie is like she's playing a game that isn't tennis, but it's wrapped up in tennis. And the only way that she can win is the end of the movie. Like everything is invested in her winning because she can't play tennis anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I don't know if she wins or if they all lose or, depending on your perspective, it's very, you don't really know where the puzzle pieces are going until about 3/4 of the way into the movie. And then you're like, oh, it like hits you with a ton of bricks just from the look on her face during one of the matches. And I almost wish there'd been one of those scenes like, like in a mystery when after you figure out who the killer is or, who took all the diamonds or whatever, they go back and they show you like step by step a montage of how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost wish that like they had done like an 80s montage of her setting up all these pieces for the very, very long game that I think she was playing.
That is quite the long game to marry Mike Faist's character, remain married to him for like over a decade, and have a child with him. If that is indeed the long game that she's playing, she's playing quite a game. Not to dismiss what you're saying. I think you're right. I think she is manipulating that, and I think that I find her frustration that she has tried this for so long and tried to make this whole thing happen for so long is kind of like her almost edging herself throughout the entire movie. Yeah. This is her excitement, is trying to make all of this come together in this way. It's really kind of fascinating if you kind of look at it from that perspective. And I love the idea that there are people who are going to this movie thinking they're going to see this really sexy three-way and finding out that the actual fucking is tennis. The final moments of this movie, that's the orgy, guys. That is what the three-way is. It's them playing tennis and her watching them play tennis at the best of their abilities. Like, that's how she gets off. That's how they get off. And that's how everybody comes to realize the things that they actually want.
And I think that if she had not injured herself and was able to play tennis, none of this would have happened. Or, and it's kind of a spoiler, so if you want to just jump ahead for, a couple minutes or whatever, when the three of them are on the bed and she starts making out and they don't even realize that she's forcing their heads together. And then when she leans back and she's got that look on her face, like these guys just need to fuck and get it over with. When she realizes that they're really into each other, and, Josh O'Connor is, I think, more into Mike Faist than the opposite. Mm-hmm. Although I think they're both, they both have these repressed homosexual things going on. But the fact that, they show you that Josh O'Connor is at least bisexual based on his Tinder profile and who he's almost going to swipe right on. But her face in that moment is like, and she keeps calling herself a homewrecker. And I'm like, yeah, that's the obvious chemistry is between the two men, not her and either one of them, because she is singularly focused on tennis and on playing the game. And once she's out of tennis, the game is now these two guys. And I think that, I don't think she's playing it the entirety of the 13 years that the movie takes place over. But I think that once she sees Josh O'Connor's character come back onto the scene, she's like, well, I don't have anything else going on. Why not? Why not just see what we can do here?
There's a key scene between her and Mike Faist where they're kind of weighing their relationship prior to the final match of the movie, and he's asking her, he's telling her that he wants to retire. And I think him leaving tennis is essentially him leaving her without him even realizing. And she
Oh,
kind of,
yeah.
and she knows that, and that's why I think she works harder on manipulating the situation to get what she truly wants, which is a really great piece of tennis. She lays it out as a teenager. Like, she talks about the connection between her and this other female tennis player, where, like, you know, like, for a moment we were really playing tennis, but like, she's saying it in a way that implies that this was
They're fucking
orgasmic. Like, yeah, we were not
Yeah.
just having we were not just playing tennis, we were having sex. It was great, you know, this great human rhythm back and forth, a way of connecting with another human being that you can't outside of tennis, which I found just fascinating. And I love the way Zendaya plays that. I love that Luca Guadagnino thinks that way.
Oh yeah, yeah. He is completely invested in Josh O'Connor's character getting what he ultimately doesn't know he wants. Um, from the second from the second he rolls up on the screen, he gets what he wants, and I feel like that is that's kind of the thrust of the movie, is seeing him get what he ultimately deserves and wants. And Zendaya in that scenario is the kind of catalyst for all of it. Because he is a kind of a sad sack character who, you know, he's kind of a loser in the game and kind of a loser at life. And he could at any moment go to his family, who are very wealthy, and say, you know, I just want to work for, you. And he doesn't. He loves the game, and part of the game that he loves is he's like chasing that experience that he had as a young man in the tennis academy with Mike Faist, which I don't understand, because Mike Faist is physically repellent to me. But sorry, I had to throw that in there. You know, I really, I know it's a threesome kind of movie, but I think that's Josh O'Connor is who we identify with in the situation, because a lot of people, you know, they don't have that singular focus that both Mike Faist and Zendaya have. They have that, you know, most people want to have a lot of different experiences and don't have that singular focus. And his singular focus is having a lot of experiences, enjoying his life, enjoying tennis that he loves. And I think he, you know, coming into this as a spoiler is kind of a way to get back with Mike Faist.
I think there's also, though, like an element to him where he could be great. Like, there's elements of his game that if he changed, if he would have ever actually listened to Zendaya, he could have changed a couple of things. If she'd become his coach, maybe earlier in his career, he could have changed things that could have made him great. And that's part of what is so interesting about him, is that he sort of chooses to continue doing what he does, even though he doesn't have to. Just stubbornly banging his head against a wall, which is kind of like what it would be like if you're a man attracted to another man who thinks he's straight. You know, you're just kind of banging your head against a wall, trying to make this person sort of realize something that they're not willing to realize yet.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the area that we live in are filled with guys like that, and I recognize that almost right away in this character, because, you know, they have this hidden desire, and that if they're afraid if they say it, it'll ruin their lives. And I think if he said, I'm really into you, and he got turned down, which he probably would have, even though I think ultimately he shouldn't have, you know, I think that would have made him a better tennis player. And, you know, if they'd found out that they were both into each other in that moment, then why not, you know, go with that and see what happens. And, you know, then, I mean, it would obviously be a completely different movie, and, you know, we wouldn't be talking about it, because that story wouldn't um, wouldn't be what it is. But I think that with the way Guadagnino, Dingo ate my baby. I can never say his name. I'm sorry. It's like my niece trying to say Minneapolis. Um, but the way he shows you the interior of Josh O'Connor's life, that he doesn't necessarily, and he shows that with Zendaya too, but Mike Faist's character is just kind of a cipher through most of it. I think
Hmm.
he doesn't. He's the tennis player, and I don't think he. I think it's by design, but I don't think his character is as developed. He's kind of an accessory for the other two,
Hmm.
and
I
kind
think
of
his
the
privilege
MacGuffin.
makes him oblivious. He's a kind of oblivious to the world around him. I think he wants to just have this sort of normal life where maybe even not even playing tennis. That and I think he's just sort of oblivious to anything that's possible for him beyond what Zendaya is telling him to do. He likes being led around by people.
Yeah, yeah. And what's funny is I kept referring to him in my head because I was like, I know I've seen him somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know where it was when I went to see the movie, and I kept calling him Hot DJ Qualls,
Oh, Jesus.
and that has kind of stuck with me. So realizing that, oh yeah, the last movie I saw him in was West Side Story, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that kind of blank slate, or tabula rasa that he is in this movie. I think it's because he's so odd looking. I hate to say something like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially somebody who looks like me, but he's very odd looking in certain shots in this movie, and I think that helps to kind of make you root for Josh O'Connor.
I think what part of it goes back to a conversation we were having earlier about people who have so much privilege that they don't really understand how the normal world works. And I think
Yeah.
he's been in this tennis world where like rich people have these tennis academies where they just send their kids there at like a very young age. All they do is play tennis and be rich. They have no idea what the rest of the world is like. And I think that's his entire life, is going from that tennis academy to Stanford and never having seen anything other than that, and kind of just having all of his needs met at any moment. And the few moments where they're not met, he sort of sulks and just waits for them to be met.
Yeah, yeah,
Again,
yeah.
I thought he was actually pretty terrific in this movie, especially in those physical moments during the tennis matches. I thought he was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I personally, I mean, my kind of character that I identified more with was Josh O'Connor.
Mhm.
Um, but that's just, I think that's just, who I am. So
Yeah, I just think this movie's tremendous. I thought this may be my favorite of Luca's movies, other than maybe Call Me by My Name. I think is a little bit more well developed. It's harmed by the fact of who stars in it that makes it impossible to watch anymore. But uh, you know,
nom, 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 nom.
poor Timothy Chalamet. I hope he's all right.
Oh, I think he's doing fine.
I'm just, he came out of that with all his pieces, so good for him, I guess.
Yeah, he always thought that when he who shall not be named, Armie Hammer, would walk up to him and goes, "Oh, you look so delicious today. I could just eat you up." I think he didn't realize what he was saying.
Oh God, so awful. I hear he sells timeshares now. That's weird.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. I don't know.
I won't say the movie, but there was a guy who made a movie with Armie Hammer, and he actually called me on the phone because I'd written a positive review before I'd actually known much about the whole Armie Hammer. Is just about when it was coming out. The director calls me and he's begging me to please, push this review out further and tell people the movie is good.
Oh, that's so
And I was like,
sad.
oh man, I'll do what I can, man. It's a good movie. You made a good movie. I'm sorry this is happening to you.
Oh, Army Hammer. I mean, he ruined so much for so many people.
So many.
Like I love the movie Sorry to Bother You.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really I tried to watch it again, but I'm just like every time I see him, I'm like,
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about The Social Network. I find it hard to go back to a little bit sometimes.
Two of them. Can you imagine?
At least he's not there the whole time. He's a relatively minor character, but still. Yeah, him and Spacey ruined so many things. Spacey's movies all suck, though, really, when you look back on it.
Yeah, I decided a few weeks ago, American Beauty was on, and I started watching it again. I'm like, you know what? The best part of this is not him. And I always thought it was. The best parts are Annette Bening and Chris Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's still, it's a very pat kind of movie, but
when you realize that what you're really identifying with is just the asshole midlife crisis of a very, very mediocre white guy, it becomes it becomes like that's a glass shattering moment when you realize it. Someday Bob will realize it.
Oh, it's not that bad. He is, but
oh man, they're so canceled though. Those guys, they're still multimillionaires who are still working and doing things and saying everything that they want to say. But we've so canceled them that nobody knows who Kevin Spacey and Armie Hammer are anymore, right?
Yep. Nope.
That's how that works. We cancel them and they go away completely. They're in jail now.
Completely. They're under the jail.
We're way off track here. Challengers is amazing. Go see it. Did you follow the memes? I was living for the 3 for Challengers meme over the weekend.
I did post one. I posted one yesterday before I went to see it.
Yeah.
It's Jack Nicholson, Carrie Fisher, and Rick James. 3 for Challengers.
Amy and MJ and I think had the best one. We posted it up on the I Hate Critics 94 page. We did the movie Threesome with Josh Charles and Stephen Baldwin, and our 3 for Challengers was the Human Centipede.
I saw that one. Yeah. Oh,
that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. But yeah, it's just funny. Those have been all really great. My favorite one, the best one, somebody posted Brad Pitt and his co-star from Fight Club. What's her name?
Helena Bonham Carter.
Thank you, Helena Bonham Carter. 3 for Challengers. If you know, you know. That's a good one. That's very good.
She was the best part of that movie for me. Her line, God, I haven't been fucked like that since grade school, is the best line. It's probably one of my top 10 ever quotes from a movie, but you can't say it around friends. Like you can't just bust that out.
Yeah, there's really no appropriate time for that.
Right after you get railed. Oh God, I haven't been fucked like that since elementary school.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty great line, been pretty well delivered, I would say, and horrifying and hilarious at the same time,
as most good things are. Like how this show is going tonight. Thanks to me.
All right, let's talk about our classic, taking you back to the early 1960s for a movie that I've known existed, but I've not taken the time to watch before. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, starring Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. And the story of Baby Jane, who was a child star on vaudeville and beloved by millions and made money for her family and was doted on by her father. And then as she gets older, she recedes, and her younger sister Blanche kind of ascends to become the family savior, a popular Hollywood actress who makes millions of dollars and promises her mother that she'll take care of baby Jane. She does so by making it part of her movie contract that Jane will also have a movie contract and get to make movies whenever her sister does. But baby Jane is a terrible actress, so this does not go well. They end up with an accident that leaves Blanche in a wheelchair and Jane taking care of her, and this goes on for many, many years until we join that story in progress and find that baby Jane is growing crazier and crazier, and Blanche is looking to sell their house and, kind of move on with her life. And that's where all the stuff begins to happen, where this crazy psychodrama begins to unfold. I was promised high camp, and I was not. I got some of that. But man, this movie is hard to watch. Like it is mean and angry and terrifying at times. Betty Davis's character is a horror movie villain who is constantly just tormenting poor Joan Crawford, which is not words I expected to say before I saw this movie. I thought this was going to be an even playing field. It is not. Blanche is not a character in this movie. She is just a victim, just beginning to end a fucking victim. She's just victimized throughout, and it's there are times when it's kind of funny and kind of broad. I like the moment where Betty Davis performs that just treacly fucking awful song.
I've written a letter to Daddy.
Oh God,
that one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait till you see what I just posted on our Facebook during the break. There is some incidental music when Anna Lee, Mrs. Bates from the next door neighbor, when she's outside and she's gardening and they're playing da 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 da. That's the song Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and I just posted Betty Davis singing that song on the Andy Williams show in 1962. So enjoy that after you watch this.
Oh no, I've seen that because that trends every now and again where that will just pop up online. Obviously came around when Ryan Murphy did Feud, and it just sort of pops up on the internet every few years.
Sarandon recreated it like down to the same flounces at the end. It was great.
Yeah, this movie is a psychodrama. It is kind of terrifying at times, and it reminded me of a lot of it certainly seems to have been an influential thriller because it reminded me of Misery lifts from this, and movies where people are trapped inside of homes, hiding from somebody who is tormenting them. Basically lifted from this movie. Robert Aldrich directs this like a horror film. It doesn't seem to hold anything back.
It's based on a book called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane by Henry Farrell, and it was not. It wasn't ever supposed to be campy. I think over the years, it's got Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, so it's got a big gay following, and the camp is Betty Davis singing that song and chasing Victor Buono around when he gets in the wheelchair, and she's the camp that I think that everybody kind of ascribes to this movie. But it was directed as a horror movie, and it really is, because Betty Davis is a horror villain. And Joan Crawford, like you said, she is the victim. I mean, behind the scenes, they were both pretty terrible to each other. They hated each other. But she's the one who unknowingly until the end has instigated this whole thing, and she has made her sister the way she is, and never could admit to it. She could never admit to her own mistake because she just blamed everything on Jane, who was spoiled as a child and was spoiled by her sister, to be in the movies, and has kind of, like Jerry Seinfeld, bought into her own hype. I'm the Baby Jane Hudson. And they're like, who? Who the fuck is Baby Jane Hudson? Much like college kids are saying, who the fuck is Jerry Seinfeld when he goes to play their Krampuses? Um, One of the things that I loved about this was it kind of launched what's called the hagsploitation genre, where it took these aging actresses like Betty Davis, Joan Crawford, Olivia de Havilland, and put them in movies kind of like this. Now, Betty Davis and Joan Crawford famously hated each other. And after this movie was such a hit, they both said that they were going to do a movie called Hush Hush Meets Charlotte, which I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
No.
So they were both cast. They both did some publicity for it. And then right before shooting, Joan Crawford claimed that she was deathly ill and couldn't continue because she didn't get along with Betty Davis. And Robert Aldrich often took Betty Davis's side because she was arguably the better actor and the bigger presence in this movie. So they replaced Joan Crawford at the last minute with Olivia de Havilland. And, Joan Crawford, of course, later blamed it all on Betty Davis, and Betty Davis, of course, blamed everything on Joan Crawford. But they really worked together so well as to, they're even costumed as, yin and yang, and one can't survive without the other. Betty Davis in usually all white, and Joan Crawford in usually all dark or black colors. The fact that they play off each other so well, and Betty Davis is just, she chews every bit of scenery that she can possibly find, from the time she shows up on screen to the time she dances off of it. And I think that's it based on the performances more so than the writing. I think that's what makes it such a classic for people. And it went through, it was a huge hit when it first came out. I think it was made for $750,000, and after 11 days had made all its money back and then some. And I think it ended up at like $9 million, which is $72 million in today's money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's gone through phases where, it was a pretty effective B horror movie in the 60s. And then, after Mommy Dearest and Betty Davis going on all the talk shows and calling Joan Crawford such a bitch and all that, I think that they, it was, oh, let's watch this old movie to see them interact with each other. And that's where the camp portion of the history of it comes. And now I think it's being kind of reevaluated by people as an actual really good melodrama / horror movie. So I think, yeah, it is all of those things.
I think what surprises me most is I think I've always known Joan Crawford was talented. But I've also only known her mostly for my life. Joan Crawford is, Faye Dunaway. That's how I know who she is. So I'm going into this movie assuming this is Godzilla versus Mothra. Like, this is going to be like two monsters like going at each other. And then you're watching Joan Crawford just be so incredibly sympathetic throughout the entire film. She's constantly victimized and has done everything she can to care for this woman. Even as, yes, she might have done something to cause this, I guess, or that I see that incident as more of the motivation for her to keep Jane in her life and keep taking care of her. That's really what that is for me, than anything else. So I don't see her as a bad person, even as she did try to kill her sister. I don't care. She's such a nice person, and I didn't expect Joan Crawford to be able to pull that off. Based on what I know of
Okay.
her, I did not see her being convincing as somebody who could be sympathetic. And she's incredibly sympathetic in this movie because she is a complete victim who is just completely hammered on by this horrifically terrifying, you know, uh, this woman who's just totally horrifying and going out of her mind.
Yeah, she always played, the shop girl who picked herself up by her bootstraps and made something of herself. That's her role
Mhm.
in the movies. The chorus girl who got the man, or Mildred Pierce. She plays the woman who will do anything for her daughter, and her daughter doesn't care. Um, and I think she kind of gives away she gives up how she feels guilty, and maybe a little why, when she's talking to Elvira,
Mhm.
the maid played by Mady Norman, who was also in Halloween 3, by the way. She says, I just, I've got to do this for her. And, she's got to, she's been through so much. And we don't know until the end of the movie that she's talking about all the stuff that she's responsible for.
Mhm.
And I think that's what kind of makes it a little poignant at the end.
Mhm.
It's played a little melodramatically, but there is that sense of her great loss at having done this, and
Yeah.
quote unquote made her ugly.
We do.
And that line that Betty Davis says,
Mhm.
"You mean all this time we could have been friends?"
Mhm.
That's kind of what you need to see from both of them.
I think I gotta ask. We're just about out of time, but I do wonder the first time you saw this, when the shot opens up of Betty Davis sitting on the beach in the sunshine, and she's playing with the sand, and she's got the bucket and she's filling it with sand. Did you think she had buried her sister? Because at that point,
No,
that was the first thought in my head. Is like, here we've returned to this scene after everybody's gone, looking for her, and everybody knows that she's missing. When they light up that scene on Betty Davis playing with the sand, I thought, oh my God, she has buried her sister on the beach. And
no.
that was, my stomach dropped.
Oh, that, yeah. No, I never thought that. Never really. Now that you say that, though, I can see where you might have thought that.
Well, because she's not in the scene, because Joan Crawford is off camera at that point. You don't
Yeah.
see her. You know where she was previously to this, but you don't see her. And so not seeing her and knowing that everybody's looking for her, knowing what she's done, before to hide a body, felt to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my God, she's buried her on the beach where no one's ever going to find her.
She should have buried her daughter, the neighbor. Um, the the neighbor girl was played by B.D. Hyman, who was Betty Davis's daughter, and did not. I mean, she was adopted, so that's why she didn't get the acting gene. But oh my God, I was really paying attention to her this time, and she's painful.
I didn't really make
And
much note of her, but
the neighbor lady, the older woman, she was played by Anna Lee, who was been in hundreds of things and was the matriarch on General Hospital for 40 years.
oh wow.
Lots of fun people in this movie.
It's quite a good movie. It's quite a good horror movie. It's a psychodrama. Just I would say look at it more as a horror film than, and if you're going into this thinking this is going to be funny camp about two old ladies fighting, that's not this movie. That's not what this
No.
is. You're missing a movie. Betty Davis won an Oscar for this for a reason. It wasn't because
She
she
won an
did
Oscar nomination.
she didn't do just the most acting. She is crushing. That
Mhm.
this is who this character is. As broad
Yeah.
as it is, as much it is might seem like the most acting, she is actually playing this character to a very degree, to a point where I almost feel like the camp is almost unfair to her. Almost.
Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap it up,
Agreed.
Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.